Disclaimer. The hosts of this podcast, Timothy Patrick and Will Foley, are by no means medical professionals. However, having lived experience with mental illness themselves, they have gained useful perspectives on common mental health issues that some of us struggle to overcome on a daily basis. By sharing their stories, they hope to create connection. By creating connection, they hope to help you find your purpose. And through purpose, we can all begin to build the foundation for positive mental health. This is Above Ground Podcast.
Are you ready to lace up your boots, throw up your horns, and jump into the pit? Then let's stomp the stigmas of mental illness. It's time for Above Ground Podcast. Now, Will Foley and Timothy Patrick.
What is up, friends? Welcome to Above Ground Podcast. Above Ground Podcast, because you can't serve below. The cast has landed on iHeartRadio.com. So if you're checking us out for the first time, you can check us out on iHeartRadio now. It's awesome. I was stoked to see that. Especially for all you people who haven't checked us out yet and you're looking for something new to listen to, want to listen to some positive, uplifting talk about mental health, well, then you're in the right place. Set your earbuds up and let it roll. And also, if you're on Apple Podcasts, don't forget to star, scribe, and share the podcast. Leave us a review. We read them on the show whenever we get a new one. So we will be more than happy to read your review and your name. And, you know, it'd be nice. Thanks. That's all I want for Christmas, is for you to leave a review. It'd be awesome. You're helping some brothers out here. Also, don't forget, we're getting ready to unleash our first T-shirts through Close Knit Company. That's right, closeknitcompany.com. Dan and Natalie are screen printing in Naples, Florida, and they got some really cool designs. They got a Happy Fucking New Year T-shirt that they just released this week that I saw on their site. So don't forget to go to closeknitco.com, closeknitco.com. Our shirts will be hitting their store pretty soon. We're finalizing the designs right now, and we're going to have a couple to start with, and then we'll see how it goes, man. But that's how you're going to be able to support the show. You'll be able to support the show by buying a T-shirt and showing your love for Above Ground Podcast. I love T-shirts, so T-shirts are awesome. Can't wait. This week, our good friend and disclaimer voice, Jordan, is back to talk about rock bottom. What is up, everyone? Welcome back. Welcome to Above Ground Podcast.
Above Ground Podcast, because you can't serve below.
You know who that is. Are you down with TPP?
Cool. You know me.
Cool.
Hi, Will.
What's up, Timmy? How we doing this week, buddy?
I'm doing a lot better than I was last week, I'll say that.
All right. Good for you, man. Good for you.
Thank you, sir.
Excellent. So tonight we got a special guest with us. Jordan is back.
Hey, folks.
Welcome back. Welcome back,
Million.
Jordan.
It's good to see the two of you in person as opposed to through a screen. That was a process, wasn't it? Interviewing people through Zoom.
It's still going on.
Is this
Oh, yeah,
ongoing
that's how
process?
That's how we do all of them, because it's just easier than getting in a room together.
Yeah, well, this is far from easy, but I still enjoy it.
You may recognize his voice from being our disclaimer.
That's me.
That's right. Jordan's a good dude, man.
Jordan, the disclaimer boy.
That's right.
I just figured I had to warn you folks. Yeah.
Yeah, you got to warn them, because they're going to run away now. Screaming, no! Tonight, we're going to be talking about rock bottom. That's right.
Rock bottom. How would you define it? How would you describe it?
What's the lowest of the low?
What's the lowest of the low?
Is there a bottom? Or does the bottom just get further down every time you reach that spot?
I mean, if you're asking me, it's a state of mind. It's where you find yourself in between your ears. It's like it's up here. Rock bottom can be, a place that you fear in life. It can also be a state of mind that you fear. Someplace you don't want to be, right?
Sure. Is it a state of mind though, or is it? Well, I guess everything's a state of mind.
It's like that defeated state of mind. Like I'm defeated. This is rock bottom. That's the way I look at it.
See, I look at rock bottom as that bottom that you just don't want to do anything, and then you may have the ideations, and you may have that's rock.
But looking at it, if you're not in the rock bottom, I guess looking at it from afar, I could understand where Jordan's perspective is, though.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not.
No.
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
yeah.
I just was just giving my 2 cents.
Yeah, and he's right though. No, it's a state of mind, I guess, because his state of mind, because like your rock bottom's going to be different than Timmy's than mine is.
Right.
So now the question is, do you recognize rock bottom?
Not when you're in it. I don't think so. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I'm speaking for myself. But when this is getting personal. I was at a low point in my life, and I've come up from then. And sometimes I go right back down. It's on a day-to-day basis. But at my lowest point, I don't think I know that I'm there until afterwards. I can look back and be like, oh, I was pretty low. I was pretty dark. In the darkness, it's hard to tell where you're at.
Sure, right? Because
It
it's just
is
like
for
being
me.
it is for me too.
Yeah.
I mean,
think
you're there though. At least I think.
I think it's that, those hard candies and they have like the gel in the center.
Yeah.
I think the gel in the center is kind of like the rock bottom. Like you put the candy in your mouth, that like you get to that point where rock bottom is somewhere around in here, and then all of a sudden it just explodes.
You're just waiting for it to hit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So is that do we set ourselves up to experience it worse because we're waiting for it? You think?
I mean, anticipating suffering is suffering in itself, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's why I was
Yeah.
It is.
curious as to.
I don't think so. I think because I was going off a little bit by what you said. Do we know, or do you know, like when you're about to hit rock bottom, or where rock bottom is? I guess. So, for me, I think it's like a series of events or things that occur. Like it's not just like you wake up and you're just, depressed or disappointed in something, and then you like get up and your coffee spills and you're out of peanut butter and you're like, all right, that's it. It could be for some people, but I'm just saying for me, it's like, it's like a succession of those things,
It can be, I've noticed in my life where it's like 1,000 small things happen, and it sets me in a downward spiral where I am at rock bottom.
Yes.
For a couple of days, for a couple of weeks, and you don't know how you got there, and you start looking into the situation like, well, 1,000 of these little things happened, or maybe one big thing happened, and the smallest little thing after that set you off, put you into that dark place, that rock bottom.
Which I think kind of puts more emphasis on, being mindful of the state you're in, being mindful of your mental health, and saying, geez, if there's 15 things, they were small, I'm going to put them aside and I'm going to just push through and I'm going to be okay. Like, you know what? Maybe you should sit and go, let me think about some of these things. Let me, talk it out, call a struggle buddy, work on it, whatever it needs to do, massage it a bit. And then, you might not, you might be able to withstand another, 3 to 5 more things.
Yeah, you may build up a tolerance to it to where every time you can withstand maybe one more storm. But I think to add on to your piggyback onto that is that maybe you do need to have an archaeological dig into that, because that's when you start to you got to ask yourself some different questions. And it's not just about why do I feel like this? It's like what is really going on? Because remember how we had talked about secondary emotions? at one point where it's
Right.
not just the surface emotion.
You're
It's
right.
the stepping down. It's the stepping down into the hole and saying, okay, well, I may be angry, but am I really angry, or am I expressing my anger because I'm sad because X, Y, and Z didn't happen, and then what happens to that sadness is you may even step down even lower and be like, well, that sadness is sadness that I experienced 20 years ago that I never acknowledged.
Still
And it
waiting
just-
inside of you.
Yeah.
Just waiting to come out because it's been in that dark place the whole time.
Right. It's like
Yeah.
it is, and and I know from
And by
my own
digging-
personal.
By digging, you loosened up the rocks and stuff around it, and it kind of you were like, what's this? And then once you pick up that last rock, and boom, it hits you.
Well, it's just like my wall in my backyard.
Yeah.
That day we were trying to take it down, like all the dirt just kind of kept coming down,
Yeah.
coming down,
Yep.
and it becomes like it's almost like a landslide. It can be if you put your feet in the wrong spot, man. You can go from solid ground to
Landslide.
right down.
I like that.
Well, I think the
term.
point is, like, when you find yourself in a more comfortable emotional state later on down the road, maybe that's a good time to start digging deeper, because with that newfound knowledge, with that, clear frame of mind, maybe you can make better sense of those dark places rather than thinking about where you are in that moment. Like let's be honest, we've all had rock bottoms, right? We've
Absolutely.
all had our very lowest moment, right? In those low moments, can you actually tell what's going on, or
No.
are you just waiting for it to pass?
No, you're
You're right.
I think you're waiting out the storm.
You have to.
And
Yeah.
I don't think that you can actually look at it I don't think while you're in the throes of it, you can actually, because you can, if you start to see yourself slip into that hole, I think you can stop yourself. But I think once you've stepped off the cliff, I think it's very hard to get out of the hole without recognizing and just maybe taking shelter a little bit and saying, okay, well, I'm in a bad spot.
Yep.
And I know that this could last, it could last a little while. So
That's why I think that whole threshold thing there. What did you say? What's the word you use?
baseline.
No,
Landslide.
No. Like when you get used to it. Like
Oh,
when
you just get used to it. It just becomes normal. You normalize it.
I can't think of the word anyways. But anyways, I think that the scary part is once you get, if you get used to it and you're like, I can kind of build up a threshold to more kind of thing.
Tolerance.
Yes. To it. But that tolerance can also be a step onto that landslide.
It can work both ways. Because it can be an acknowledgement too, out of to find the staircase out or ladder, whatever metaphor you want to use to climb out of the hole. But it can also create the landslide.
Yep.
Or if you can tolerate more, it'll just be a bigger landslide when it actually happens. You think about that, you're holding back that bigger
Right.
wall, like the
Which
Hoover
is-
Dam just lets loose.
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it becomes a landslide, becomes an avalanche.
Right.
And you're just rolling down, man. You're just getting buried in it.
So something I wanted to mention to you guys is, like, we've all had rock bottoms, our lowest point. We can look back on it in retrospect, and we could see that we survived. Do you have loved ones that are going through rock bottoms, hitting bottoms, and you're witnessing that? What's it like? What's it been like for you to witness others that you care about hitting bottoms, their absolute worst? Has that happened?
To me, it's scary because I think a lot of times you see yourself in that person. So I think for me, it starts to make me wonder if I'm projecting, or if it's being projected onto me, or if it's just something that I haven't acknowledged yet.
Sure. Something that Tim made me aware of the other day is, like, there's two ways to approach witnessing a loved one falling on hard times. Do you try to save them from themselves, or do you, how did you put it, Tim? You sent me that meme. It was either rescue or...
I don't remember. Or about listening, was it maybe?
It was rescue or rescue versus support.
Okay.
So supporting someone at their rock bottom versus rescuing someone at their rock bottom. That's kind of what I wanted to go on here.
I've had very big conversations at home about rescue versus support, because that's a thing, it's been a thing in my house.
Well, that's a scary, both ways. It's scary because a lot of people, and it good. I'm not using it as a negative way, but we don't know how to support. You know what I mean? These are topics that, are pushed to the side and never discussed. No one wants to talk about them because they're hard topics.
Let's talk about it now.
Well, we are,
Yeah.
for sure. But
yeah.
I'm just saying, I'm just saying, go back 10 years, and I would possibly avoid. You know what I mean? I would know that it's uncomfortable, and I'd be like, that's an uncomfortable place to stand. I'm going to stand over here because it's not as uncomfortable.
I will say this for you. I've seen a lot of growth in that area.
Yeah.
I do still see that part of you, though, and I see it in different ways now. And because we also do a lot of other stuff outside of this, so I see you in a lot of different avenues, but I do see that can be a hard spot for you sometimes. And I think, and it's hard for me too, because, and I may not even recognize it in myself. I know this for me, I don't want to be saved, okay? I don't want to be rescued because the only person that can save me is me.
Right.
And I've learned that the hard way, that nobody can get me out of the shit pile unless it's me that is willing to take some paper and wipe it away, man. It doesn't. Granted, when I need support, I don't necessarily need you to tell me what to do. Anybody to tell me what to do. I just need somebody to hold space, and that's very hard when it comes to loved ones, and especially when you've got other stuff wrapped up with that. I mean, you're talking about livelihoods. You're talking about family stuff. That dynamic is
so complicated.
Yeah,
very
and
complicated.
And on top of it, you could have somebody that you're dealing with a loved one or family that, and then the person who's dealing with it is also a helper. Is that person at heart that is has to help and say I'm going to help this person instead of, you know what I mean? So it's and it's not that they're a bad person. That's just what they do.
Right.
So that might not be conducive to somebody like you that says I don't want that kind of help. You know what I mean? I just want you to sit and listen. And talk it out or sit in silence. And
that's exactly what I found recently, dealing with a very close family member on hard times, literally at rock bottom. And it's tough to witness, so it's my instinct to rescue.
Right.
And I'm doing more damage in the process because they're the rescuer. They're the one who wants to be rescued. They have that sort of position of, call it power, in the family dynamic where I'm doing more damage than good in my efforts to save them from the perceived threat. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I had to come to terms with that I am doing nothing to help this person, even though I'm giving it my honest effort.
How does that feel for you?
Well, at first I was like, well, I'm no good. My best efforts were not good enough to save this person. Like, I'm reaching out my hand to save them from falling off that cliff, only to watch them fall further. It's like I didn't have what it takes. But forgiving yourself, I forgave myself. I'm not a professional. I don't know.
But either way, not to interrupt you, but it's not your responsibility. So it's you probably do have what it takes.
That's a role I assumed.
Right, but here's the thing too, because you just mentioned a word, professional.
Yeah,
dude, professionals can't save you from yourself. They can give you tools, they can provide you medicine, but I'm serious.
Who are you more willing to listen to? Just a guy like me or a guy with a title?
I'm more willing to listen to somebody who's been there.
Okay.
And maybe I'm a little bit biased because I've been there.
Not everyone thinks like you.
I know they don't. Yeah. I know they don't.
Yeah.
And granted, that's why we have a shortage of professionals, and that's why it's hard to get an appointment with anybody nowadays.
Right.
And I agree. Not everybody is the same.
Right.
And again, that comes from my own issues deep inside of, needing to take care of myself and everybody else around me growing up, man. I was the adult in the room most of the time.
Yeah.
When I didn't know how to be an adult. It was like, I'm, trying to be a kid. And
it's funny. It actually, you know what? This doesn't really go with what we're talking about, but you had said something in an episode a while back. It was the Blueprints episode. And you had said something along the lines of when you were telling a story about when your grandfather had passed away, and you were like no one cared how I wanted to grieve. Like they just wanted me to grieve the way they wanted.
Yes, exactly. And I think that happens to people. Now, the way you were describing it sounds like a codependent relationship.
It's become that. it's become a codependent relationship because, I'm sure that you have this sort of social dynamic within your families, right, where you'll share a hardship with a very close loved one, right? You both lose something, and in that process, you become closer, but the relationship becomes strained, right? Because you're trying to save one another, or like you said, in the process of losing your grandfather, totally don't acknowledge the process of grieving, just moving on, right?
Right.
All right, so that relationship, it's become weird, right? Where we're not sure of our roles or who needs to be saved or who's saving who.
Well, I think that's where communication comes in to play, and really get down to, like I always say, like being clear is being kind.
Yes.
It's hard to set boundaries though with people in your family because there's that, because it's such a friggin' gumbo of just, and depending on what kind of relationship you have with that family member in the first place, especially if it might be different for a spouse, but when you're talking about parents, you're talking about brothers and sisters, there's a lot of things that are wrapped up in all that in that candy bar, man.
And again, just I don't know who said, but like having that title, like who would you rather have that title as professional or not? The same thing, a title as family. It's like you can have that title, but at the same time, if something is going on within family and it's not working well for you, it's hindering your ability to grow and heal, then whether they're family or not, that label shouldn't really make a difference.
It's also hindering them also.
Well,
I mean,
yeah, sure.
you got, because that's the hard part.
Well, it is, but at the same time, like I said, you have to be. For me, maybe some people look at it as a negative way, but it's like I am going to pretty much put myself first in those situations and be like, you know what, it's not worth it for me to stay here and deal with this and get bombarded and get jabs thrown at me or whatever it's going to be. I'm just going to go, okay, see you later.
That's what I was told by an older family member. I go to this person for help and for advice because they have this beautiful mind where they can understand emotional complexities. They're like the Einstein of emotions, right? My grandma. I asked her.
They usually are grandmas.
Yeah, she's awesome. I asked her, what do I do about the situation I'm talking to you guys about? She says, do you have to hurt yourself to save them? She's very simply stated, do you have to hurt yourself to save them? I'm like, well, yeah, I'm hurting all over because of this. She goes, is it worth it? I'm like, well, you're a martyr. You're martyring yourself. You're falling on the sword. I don't know. I mean, is it worth it? Do you want to see this person saved at your expense? I'm not a hero. None of us are, but it's nearly impossible to watch loved ones at their rock bottom. When they're dealing with mental illness, when they're dealing with grief.
I know exactly. I get what you're saying.
I hope you understand.
I do.
It's
I
hard.
do, because no matter who you are, if you're a helper or if you're someone that doesn't necessarily jump at the chance or go, I shouldn't say it, to go about the situation in that way of with the mindset of helping, whichever it is, I think it's a very tough thing to do, is to watch.
Yeah.
Not even related to mental health specifically. I think the original question that you asked that started this part of it was, how would you kind of deal with it or whatever?
Witnessing a family member in their rock bottom.
As soon as you said that, the first thing that popped into my head that still like once in a while like haunts me to this day is when my aunt had called me to let me know that my mom had passed, and all I heard in the background was my dad sobbing. And I was just like...
That's what you heard?
Yeah, like that sound, it was like the worst sound in the world at that moment. I was like... Because, your dad, it's like your dad, and he's... You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like... And we're not one to really... Our family is not really one to, be emotional and talk about things or, show emotions, I guess you could say.
Yeah, there's something to be said for that, because your lowest moment was overshadowed by your loved one's lowest moment. Like, all you could see was their pain, despite your own.
Oh, Dude.
Isn't that insane?
Well, it's so perfect example, and I think I talk about this quite a bit because people are amazed that I remember like this stuff, but some of this stuff is etched so far on the hard drive that it doesn't matter how much therapy you talk, it doesn't go away, those feelings. And that same thing happened to me when my parents' marriage blew up on Easter Day. And my dad was literally in my bedroom sobbing and packing garbage bags to leave. And I, instead of like saying it was going to be all right to me, I'm not paying attention. I'm like looking at him, and it's like that.
How old were you think?
Dude, I was 5. Oh yeah, dude. Easter, yeah, absolutely. Like I haven't. It started with me waking up to chaos and yelling and asking for my Easter basket a couple of times. Dude, I kid you not.
No, I'm not.
Dude,
it's just like
laugh at my pain because it is.
No, I'm not laughing at your pain. I'm just.
I'm laughing at the irony. You know,
it's pretty ironic, man. But it's like, you know, and I've worked on this. I worked on this a little bit in therapy that I hid behind the dining room table. I didn't hide behind it. I sat behind it on the floor next to the heater. But in hindsight, I was really just hiding and just.
Dude, that's a lot for like a mature adult to take in, not let alone a 5-year-old.
Oh, you know, and you don't realize how deep some of that just resonates. Yeah. And now coming back to family and so right now, as it is for the last couple of years and ever since we started this podcast, my mom is in and out of psychosis and not, and she literally just got out of the hospital about a month and a half ago, and she had all her stuff stolen because she can't keep anything straight. She doesn't think when she's out. She just doesn't have the faculties, and it's painful to watch. However, I had to extricate myself from that relationship many years ago because it was so painful. And then even just trying to rebuild that as much as you can, like to hear that, you know, she wanted to kidnap me. Like she had like literally told me this like 2 years ago that she was thinking about when my parents are going through their divorce that she wanted to take me. And I was like, well, I probably wouldn't have went with you. And I said, you would have never seen the light of day. Because I said you'd already been in hospital. They would have thrown you in some crazy place. And I don't mean that in a bad way,
not
but it's like
way.
But again, it's
consequence for her behavior,
right? Yeah. And it's like you look at it, and now you have to be the helper again because it seems like that's the only time I ever get the call is when, you know, we need rescuing.
So let's ask ourselves: is that the proper response to witnessing a loved one's rock bottom? Is to rescue or support? You know. Because it seems like in the past, you wanted to rescue Will. I've wanted to rescue Tim. Did you feel like, you know, you had some sort of responsibility to help your father through, or just witness and just take it all in?
That's a good question. I mean, I think it's different for everybody.
Yeah.
But for me, in that question you're asking me, there was a couple other instances, and they were all based around my father. There was another one that his whole side of the family, there's no conversation. No one talks to anybody. There's no contact or anything like that. Right. Somehow, my cousin, his brother's daughter, had emailed me that my grandmother passed away, which was my dad's mother. So no one told him. So now it's like, and to answer the question is no, I don't want that responsibility. Like I don't want to be that person. But there's been a handful of times where it's just been thrown in my lap, and I had to be that person because it's like, you know what I mean? Like, what am I going to do? Like.
So it's been put upon you.
Yeah, like let my dad see it in the paper that his mom died.
Who put that on you? Yourself?
No.
You were told to tell it to your.
Well, I mean, I was told. No one told him. Because there's no contact. There's no. Yeah. I don't know. Then again, I don't know the story behind any of that shit.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
So, so it was just kind of put on me, like, hey, just wanted to let you know. And I'm like, Oh, okay. I guess
I guess yeah, I'll be the one to communicate to the family because no one is
not his own brother. Let alone not him.
Yeah.
He a grown man that would share the mother with him. He couldn't have just sent a card or something like that. So
I'm sure now looking at the situation, you could see where so many people went wrong. Like, oh man, she should have just reached out herself instead of emailing me so I could make that hard phone call.
Whatever. It's just I don't think I really pay too much attention to it. I think it probably has an effect on me just being edgy and critical as I am with some shit. But it's like it is what it is. I'm not going to sit here and worry about it. But it just to answer the question, it was just thrown into my lap, and I was like, okay, well, in a few situations that I can think of, it was like I kind of had to.
Right.
You know what I mean? Right. So it was more of like me thinking of my dad, thinking of his mental state, I guess, emotional state.
You considered, his needs in the situation.
Yes, that would be a better sentence.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. When I back in 2012, my best friend, his name was Doug. He died of a heart attack when he was 25. Right. He was in the military. He was shipped down to Georgia to be a part of a new platoon, whatever. I don't know the lingo. And when he was down there, he's in formation with the other army men, and he dropped dead just on the spot, had a heart attack. His girlfriend was the only person there with him as far as family. The only number that she had on her phone of his family or friends was me. She called and told me that Doug died. Well, I know all of Doug's family, so I was the guy to make the rounds.
Ouch.
Tell his father, tell his mother, tell his brother. Not that I was asked to do it, but I saw it as like a service to the people that loved Doug.
Sure.
To provide that information. And even like that was like sort of a rock bottom for me. I didn't see it because I put my pain to the side temporarily to assist the others in at least comforting them. I mean, telling his dad was witnessing his reaction. No good. No good. Yeah. It was not good.
Well, I think you had said something similar. Like I think our bodies in those situations go into this like adrenaline soaked survival mode or something like that, and you just kind of, you know what I mean?
Where you're not feeling or really reacting to anything. It's just,
you're just doing it, kind of going through them. Right. You're focused, like,
tunnel vision
right there. And then, of course, once it's over and like a week has passed, then boom, then it can hit you.
I still cry about it.
Yeah,
even to this day, I think about him all the time. I'm like, wow.
Did they ever find out what happened?
Like, he had a heart condition that was undiagnosed, but his first day he wanted to impress. He wanted to perform, so he took diet pills and 4 energy drinks, and his heart exploded. He just couldn't handle it. With the stress partnered with the lack of sleep, partnered with the heart condition that wasn't.
Yeah, sure.
Just perfect recipe for your heart. That's why I always say, on a side note, don't drink energy drinks. Whatever you do, don't drink energy. There's nothing good in those.
Well, it's kind of like what you were saying, though. That's not one thing. It was like multiple things. It just happened to hit at the most imperfect time.
Sure. Yeah.
That usually seems to be the case with
right, and that obviously leads to that can lead to obviously the avalanche of stuff that happens. When you were talking, I was kind of caught by something because you were talking about the responsibility that came with somebody calling you to tell you, because you kind of felt that you needed to do that. And rightfully, I would put myself in that same, if that would have to happen to me, I would do the same thing, because, and you do get kind of tunnel vision. But and it kind of comes back to Timmy's point, though, because you know how you said you didn't necessarily want to be the one to tell your dad?
Right.
When does that become avoidance as opposed to fulfilling duty that you may not want, however, it gets thrust upon you? You know what I mean? Is it?
I see what you're saying. I think sometimes like the hard jobs are put upon big shoulders. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like she didn't have the wherewithal to communicate that to a handful of people. So she put it on someone who she thought could. Was she wrong? I don't think so.
She probably, and to her defense, she probably wasn't even really thinking either.
Could you imagine?
Yeah, no,
Could
that's
you
what I'm saying.
imagine?
No, and if you were the only number that she could,
Right.
Yeah, I don't know if I would have done any different or any better in her position. But imagine a world where she told me what happened and I didn't communicate that the way that I had. I mean, how would they have found out? Would it have been my fault? Probably not, but I would feel guilty. I still feel guilty about that.
Yeah.
But I try not to carry, guilt along with me because that can be like a ball and chain, can it?
oh,
I
guilt.
was just about to say, guilt and shame are one of those things that can lead you, to that landslide to rock bottom. It's
Right back in exactly.
one
Yeah.
way
And
trip.
Yep.
Sure, and that guilt, you may not even realize it's guilt at first. You may experience that guilt as anger, and that anger becomes this sadness, and you're like, why? Why am I sad? Like, I'm mad, I'm sad. Oh, I know why, because I'm guilty, because...
Brene Brown really opened my eyes to that with the shame.
Oh, dude, shame
I
is...
was like, wow, like I have a lot of shame going on.
Yeah, well, she speaks... and the way she just the way she describes it and talks about it, and it's pretty intense the way she's kind of come to her whole thing, because her whole thing is based around shame.
Yeah. I mean, that's what she studied for, over 10 years.
Yeah, because she had to deal with a lot of it that she had for herself.
Right.
I feel a lot of shame. I feel a lot of shame for things that I don't even know if I need to be ashamed of. You know what I mean? But again, you don't know what you don't know at the time, and you have to grow.
And I think letting go of some of these things is a proactive way to stay away from that landslide.
You have to let go. I mean, what are you holding on to it for? You may have made a mistake. You may have done something regrettable that you look to in your past and be like, oh, that brings me shame and guilt. But why do you hold on to it? What is it doing for you today, and how is it going to serve you in the future? Are you learning from it? And
I think you have to address it like you said, like you have to recognize it and then address it and go, why, what am I feeling? Is it shame, or is it sadness, or is it anger? What is it? You know what I mean?
Or it could be a whole sandwich of those.
Well, sure.
Because there's a lot of that wrapped up in it, because you could be mad that you didn't do something,
Right. But I
and
think,
ashamed that you let something happen.
I think by
and then,
dissecting it, you can identify it and then go, okay, and then even just step back and see it. See the situation from afar, from a different perspective, and go, okay, I see it now. I'm good with it, And
well, that, like, when you start digging around, the only way you're going to start like excavating is to acknowledge, and that and that acknowledgement, or that inquiry into what that thing is that you're digging at. I mean, you can't, you don't know if it's an artifact until you dig it out of the ground. It could just be a rock, or it could be. It could be a shameful moment that you had when you were 7 or 8 that you don't recognize until then, and you're like, oh, that's what that is.
Right. And then here's the next step. Here's the next problem that you're going to encounter.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, because when you're on, even before that landslide, you're already in this negative loop, and your view's distorted. You're wearing the shit-colored lenses. And the way you see things is negative. So then you step into this pit and you're sliding down. You may not even realize it, but you also may be looking at everything in an illogical way.
Sure, the jungles of the mind can lead you. Like, you're going through the jungles, all of a sudden you're in a thing of quicksand. There's nothing you can do about
Quicksand, yes.
Nothing you can do about it.
Yes.
And then you got to hope you find some sort of branch.
Right.
I mean, that's when you could. I mean. But is the branch saving someone, or you know what I mean? Like, there's so many there's so many ways that you could kind of.
I think in a situation where if you're in quicksand, if you're headed in quicksand or in quicksand, I think you kind of have to, to an extent, you have to kind of grab onto, do what you can do whatever you can do to get out. Like, you know what I mean?
Whether it's taking help from somebody or...
Yeah. I mean, if you don't want to take help, suck it up. Like, you know what I mean? Like you should, and this is why I think we always stress, like before this happens, like get your struggle buddy in place.
Well, right before crisis
know?
strikes, have a plan.
Even if you
Because you don't wanna
never
be-
really had a crisis in your life, and you're like, you know what, get a struggle buddy. It's not, you know what I mean. You probably have one, you just don't realize it. You know,
Right.
That's
and you
true.
may have even had a crisis and not realize it.
That's
Because a
true,
lot
too.
of people don't take the time to even question why they felt something or why they were feeling a certain way at a specific time, and it may have been for long periods of time.
So
Right.
for you, I'm gonna ask both of you, but like speaking of that ball and chain, what are some of the things for you that you've either noticed or that you recognize that were the ball and chain for?
My lack of acknowledgement for a very long time was my lack of acknowledgement of the pain that I was carrying and how much it had really affected me, and that constant movement of going through. Granted, there were certain situations where I knew I was in the grieving process or some, at some level of it for many different things, but it was always that there was always that piece of me that was still suck it up and move on, because that's the way it's always been. And then and that works until it doesn't work anymore. You know what I mean? You can't drive a car on a flat tire very far before that tire, falls off that rim and whatnot. What about yourself, Jordan? What about
My ball and chain.
Yeah,
like
my
what-
burden.
yeah?
What are the things that that has led up to a rock bottom or a close to the quicksand or landslide? What are
Well, I've noticed lately, in my attempts to rescue others and then being refused in my attempts, I begin to feel worthless, right? Because my best efforts are not good enough for them, and it puts me in a place where, man, I'm looking at this quicksand and it's at my feet, right? I'm not good enough to save the people I love the most, and I'm giving it my most honest effort. And then I started to ask myself, why am I trying to save them? Why am I trying to rescue? And subliminally, I believe that I want to be rescued, that I'm the one that needs to be rescued.
yeah?
And I'm doing this because I hope that they would reciprocate.
I
Right?
see what you're saying.
That's
And
that's
it-
really profound. I mean,
And
that's
you do
an
it without
awesome-
realizing it. You do it without, you don't have that plan. You don't, one day wake up and be like, I'm gonna save them so they'll save me.
Yeah.
No, because that's not how the
Some-
human mind works.
It's not in everybody, not in most people, but there
I'm
are
not that
people
smart.
who
I like to think I have a plan, but I have no plan in order, such as what I just discussed.
No, I get
Right.
what
You know
you're
what I
saying.
mean?
right.
That's
Think about it. Why do we save people? Because we want to be saved. It's like Superman's burden.
Yeah,
know what I mean?
And then
I
here's-
can relate to that because
but here's the problem with that is when they don't reciprocate, then that is going to have a negative effect on you.
Think about
Right.
the relationship dynamics after that. You go around saving everyone, and no one comes to save you when you need it. Think about the relationship dynamics after that.
oh yeah.
Yeah,
Well, you
talk
gotta-
about bitterness.
Well, that's what
Well,
I was gonna say.
that's-
The
yeah.
person who's walking around holding resentment, that's something that they have to.
You're looking at them.
Yeah, you have to let
Yeah,
go.
you're looking at them. It's been tough. Like I said, lately it's been tough because I witness what I perceive to be rock bottoms in the life of people that I love, and me trying to do something about it just isn't adding up. So maybe I need to rethink my approach.
It's weird because I don't see that in you. I don't get that. Like, you don't come off with a chip on your shoulder, or like you don't seem like to hold resentment.
Well, because there's different Jordans. There's the Jordan who will rescue, and then there's the Jordan who's in love with life, and then there's the Jordan who there's no nonsense. We had lunch the other day, and you were being a bit of a character, and I wasn't having it, right? Yeah, so that's that Jordan. There's different Jordans. I'm very dynamic, and I'm sure you guys could relate. Like, you're not always the same Will. There's different Wills. There's different Tims.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's just the way I feel about myself. Is I'll put on a mask for the situation. To go back to that mask thing that you guys have used in the past. Like, whatever situation you're in, you have a mask in your closet for that situation to get you through it, to whatever you think you need to be in that moment. And the Jordan that you might know might not be the Jordan that there is, or maybe there's other Jordans.
Okay.
I think we all have that though.
Do you think it's best to not have that mask though?
No, because I still think that those masks or roles we play or whatever, I still think that they serve a purpose. Now, granted, I know that we try not to live in survival mode. However, those roles can survive. Those roles play a part. Now, you have to acknowledge why you play those roles. Mm-hmm. I think for sure, because there's obvious roles that we all play. And you have to at least have enough. You have to be able to separate yourself from yourself enough to have the insight to say, okay, this is something. And granted, in the moment, you're never like in the moment. Like that's the biggest thing. Like in that moment, in that pit, in that despair, you're not going to see what's there because in a dark room, you can't see what's in front of you. You're just feeling around. You're just hoping you find a door or a light switch or something.
Right, it's like a drowning victim. Like so you can throw a life raft to a buoy or whatever to a drowning victim, and they won't see it because they're panicking because they're not thinking rationally. Right, and when you're falling down,
and
when you're falling into that quicksand, you're not going to see the hand that's reaching out to rescue you. You're going to respond to that hand with violence and rage because you're losing it.
Right.
Yeah.
Or and you may not even. And the thing is that in that panic, you may not even be able to get to that rescue,
right?
Because you're just taking on more and more.
Yeah. So that leaves us with that previous question. What do you do? For someone who is at their rock bottom. I mean, I guess that you can't answer that question. It's different with every person, but anyways, putting that out there because it's current topic in my life. I've been at my rock bottom and now I'm witnessing others at theirs. What do?
You don't stop trying.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you don't stop trying to at least offer some sort of
make attempts.
Doesn't mean you have to. It doesn't mean you do it at the the behest of your own emotional well-being necessarily, and it's very hard to separate yourself from that.
Yeah. Especially
in a close relationship with somebody, you don't want to see them hurt, and then all that hurt brings up all this other stuff that you're just unearthing, man, as you're moving as the ground is moving beneath you. Mm. But I still think that you still need to offer some sort of guidance, maybe not even guidance. Some people just need you to just sit there with them and hold space and not even offer anything. Just okay. Yeah, I'm just gonna hang out.
Maybe there's a third role you can fill instead of rescue and support. Maybe there's something else that I'm missing.
I think either way, whatever. This is just my opinion. Whatever you shouldn't be focused on what role should I play. You should look inside. Look inside you, like look inside your heart. And if it comes from your heart, go with that. Like go with your gut. And it's like, I would say if you have a good enough relationship where you can communicate, send them like a text and say, I'm here. I know you're struggling. I'm not saying that I know what kind of pain you're in. I'm not judging it, but I know that you're going through some struggles right now. And when you're ready to talk, I'm here.
That's great.
And then maybe like a day, even the next day, how are you doing today? Like almost like laterally, like, you know what I mean? Like, how are you doing? Like not really focus on that, but just how you doing? Yeah. And then maybe, hey, if they respond, you have a little bit of a back and forth convo. Hey, what about this weekend? You want to grab some lunch?
Yeah.
See how you feel? All right, cool.
Yeah, I think, looking back at some of my rock bottoms, there were people who were there, and I might not have seen them for what they were at the time, but maybe they kind of chaperoned me through that darkness, and whether by design of their own or just by a coincidence, just by being there, somehow they were able to see me through, and it's in retrospect that you can actually get a good handle on who was there.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you, and even both. But like, what? Because you kind of you laid the question out. Like, what what do you do?
Mm-hmm.
So what would, if you were in the rock bottom, or if you were at rock bottom or heading towards rock bottom, what would you prefer? What would you like somebody to do for you?
It's a lonely place, right? Like being at rock bottom, you feel like you're alone. So maybe just simply being there, having someone ride it out with you. I'm not asking for someone to, like, you know, if I'm going down, go down with me. I don't think I'm saying that. But if I'm alone in the darkness and I'm afraid, maybe just sit with me a while. Just be here, so I don't feel like the world's coming to an end. You know.
How about you?
I agree. I don't want to be saved.
Right.
But I also recognize this, that part of the thing that drew me to this was because I needed to be saved. Right. Because that's what happens. We're all wounded, you know, we're all wounded saviors, man. And that's what gives me strength.
Sure.
But it's also accepting help when you need it. Which has been a very, very difficult thing for me to do.
I was going to say.
I mean, it is. It's hard, man,
know.
because it's like, and truth be told is that so many people, like, and I said this during a recent appointment with someone, that it's not that I don't like compliments. I don't react well to compliments because they always seem to have a tag that comes with them. There's like this little bit of bait. It's almost like an bait.
Ulterior motive.
Yeah, and I don't mean that I don't mean it to be rude, but it just seems like that love always has that sort of acknowledgement comes with a price tag.
Do you feel that way because that's how you compliment people, with a bait at the end of that hook?
No. But it's the way that I recognize love is very codependent in many ways because of the way it was shown to me as a kid. And it was almost like, I'll accept you for this, but I expect this in return, where it was never just being that just for that. And that has followed me like right through now at my 48.10 year. You know what I mean? Like, it has. And I've really been doing a lot of soul searching about that, because I acknowledge it, but it's hard to, like, I didn't know what I never knew what boundaries were. And I didn't realize that, you know, like, I discussed some of the stuff that I saw when I was a kid, and like, people are like, what? And it's like, dude, it was just it was normal. It was not, and I didn't feel like anything was wrong, and I didn't think that anything was being necessarily done, or there was any harm being done.
Let me ask you this: with what did you use? Compliments? Is that what word you use?
Yeah, like people like telling me positive things.
Yeah. Okay. So, that's my question: is does it happen to you with negative things?
No, I can absorb because I've we've had this discussion. Self-worth,
right?
Like, has been a that's buried deep in that. There's excavation still going on to unhook that.
We gotta rent some extra machinery for that shit.
You're gonna need a damn big earth digger, man. That's right. We're gonna need a bigger boat. We're gonna need a bigger
I feel like
excavator.
just talking with you guys right now, I feel like we all made like an extra connection tonight, like, because I feel like we all have that. We're all in that same, self-worth category, I guess you could say, because I think no matter what it stems from, it no matter what it transpires into, you know, it's still that same seed.
Well, no matter, right, and we've all been sown into the same ground. It's just that we're not all the same seeds. Because every seed is different.
Yeah, no,
so,
but I meant the seed of self-worth.
Right.
Like,
oh, no, yeah, I get it.
You still have worth, because even if you don't help somebody, you still have worth. You're still worthy even though you don't help somebody. You're still worthy even though someone may not love you. You're
Right.
still worthy. You know, I'm still worthy even though I make mistakes. I'm still worthy.
Right. We're all still worthy.
Right.
No matter what, we're all still worthy.
So why does it matter so much to hear that from others? Why is our voice not good enough?
For me, it's because I just didn't acknowledge my voice. And I felt that my voice was never acknowledged.
Isn't your
Well,
voice the
it's-
most important voice
When you
in your
say
life?
when you say it to yourself, though, do you believe it?
I'd like to think I do. I'd like to think that I do believe it.
I
Obviously,
think if you say it to
But
yourself
do
and,
you?
and mean it from the, you know it without any doubt, you know it. You can say it to yourself.
if you say something once, it's not true. If you say something 1,000 times, it becomes true. It needs to be repetition.
Yeah,
It needs to
I've
be.
been
I
working-
can't just wake up one day and be like, "I'm happy,"
No,
and
I
wave
know,
my
but I'm
arms and
saying,
legs.
like,
But
it's in response to your question. Why is it not? You can
right. Why is my voice not good enough
You can
Yeah.
go
for
from,
me?
You can go from Buddhist to monk to whatever kind of guru that, and they're gonna tell all. It's gonna all go the same thing. Like there's no worse demon than the one that's inside. They're all gonna have that.
That's because that's the only demon there is. There's no outside demons. At least from what I'm finding, dude, that's the whole idea that I'm starting to finally come to rationalize and actually see in real time that there's nothing outside. Like Alan Watts was 110% correct, because the biggest fucking joke that is played on everybody is that everything's outside. Everything you want is outside of you. Like all the spiritual nonsense is
absolutely
outside of you, but it's not. It's that war of the inside. It's that acknowledgement. It's that tug of war, man. There is no Satan and there is no God to me, because it's
all within you.
It's all within you.
Yeah.
And that to me is where the boat of the divine resides. But I'm just starting to understand that.
well, this is your soul's experience in this life. What you're experiencing in this life, your soul needs to experience for you to have the wisdom necessary in your next life. If you believe in that,
Right, if you believe in that, I
that
believe
sort of
that,
thing.
I kind of believe that we come out of this because we accepted something in some far, and I'm not saying this in some woo-woo sort of way, but at least the way it's being experienced by me lately, and it kind of goes back to that half joke on Facebook recently about when people
right.
ask you about.
I wasn't offended, by the way. I was trying to have some fun, I guess.
Yeah, the way people have been to me the last couple weeks, I just don't feel like engaging because.
Dude, it makes total sense not to engage. Why would you?
Right, because it's not worth the energy.
Who wins?
Nobody.
So listen, as we were just discussing that, this quote came to my mind, and luckily I found it because I saved it with my favorites, because it's one of my favorites, and when you hear it, you're gonna go, yeah, it's an African proverb. When there is no enemy within, the enemies outside cannot hurt you.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the enemy's hurt outside more when that enemy inside, because it's all reflection and it's all this, it's all this exterior stuff that we worry about that is not really what's bothering you. It's all the stuff that's internal. It's all the stuff, just all that shit, man.
I wrote this earlier. You were mentioning a quote that you like.
Yeah.
This actually relates to this conversation. We only see the darkness in others that resemble the shadows in ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who said that? Do you know?
I did. I wrote it earlier.
Carl Jung said something very similar to that.
Well, Carl Jung, there's a video just popped up on my YouTube thing that I have to listen to. It's Alan Watts actually reading something from Carl Rogers about the Civil War within. I think it was Carl Rogers. It was either Carl Rogers or Carl Jung. It was probably Carl Jung, because he was a Jungian. I don't know what he was, but he was big. He was big. Alan Watts loved Carl Jung.
Yeah.
He quotes him quite often. But Alan Watts really does kind of point at that's that game of hide and seek. What you're really hiding from is that you really are all those things that you think are out here.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
But it's not. That's That's that fallacy that we need to escape. It's this.
But we can't because we're human. Like, you can attempt and you can drive yourself crazy trying to obtain that level, but you're just a man. Like, don't be so hard on yourself. You really shouldn't be.
Or just don't take life so seriously.
Right.
It's a game.
Right.
Like,
that's what he said.
You know,
right,
my
it's a
wife
game.
says every morning I wake up, she goes, "We get to play again." Like, we're just kids. Just play. Just have fun.
Well, that's what it
That's a
comes
great way to
down
look
to.
at it.
We get to play again, you know?
Well, that's everything
take
that we
anything
talk.
personally.
No.
Right, and everything we talk about seems to take that back where you spend your entire youth trying to become grown and old because you think that that's what it is, but then you spend the rest of your grown years trying to go back to being a kid again. And then a lot of that stems from that stuff. But
Yeah.
Jordan, thanks for coming, man.
Yeah, it was a good time. Thank you for having me.
I want to read a quote to wrap this up, actually, or before we wrap it up. I actually came in here with saying this quote first as like an introduction to the episode, but whatever. So I'm going to read it now. Rock bottom became the solid foundation on which I rebuilt my life. J.K. Rowling.
Yeah, that's a good way to wrap it up, man.
That's perfect.
Yo, thank you very much for listening to another episode of Above Ground Podcast. Jordan, thank you for being here, man.
Thank you, guys.
sir.
And thanks for doing our disclaimer.
Yeah, anything I can do for you guys, I'm here for you.
Same here, buddy. Right back at you.
Don't forget to share, star, subscribe.
You got it. Share, star, subscribe, follow us on social media.
Follow us on social media. Email us at abovegroundpodcast@gmail.
Yes, at gmail.com. You can go to abovegroundpodcast.net and find all the episodes. 2021, baby. Some of these episodes are going behind the gate, so we're gonna have some.
The gate.
We're gonna have some new stuff going on next year. We've been working behind the scenes to work on some stuff. So after the holidays are all over, we'll be unveiling some new stuff by January.
Look out for it.
Thank you for joining us. Till next time, be well.
Be safe.
Be above.